Let me ask you something. Have you ever seen someone driving a luxury car and instantly thought, wow, this guy must be rich? Maybe they're wearing a Rolex. Maybe they're posting first-class flight photos on Instagram. Maybe they just bought a huge house and seem to be living the dream. And if we're being honest, most people admire that because flashy spending is visible. We can see the car, we can see the watch, we can see the vacation photos, we can see designer clothes. But here's the problem. We usually judge wealth based on what people spend money on. And that's exactly why so many people completely misunderstand what wealth actually is. That idea comes from the psychology of money, and it hits hard because it's true. The author says something incredibly simple. Wealth is what you don't see. And once you understand that sentence, your entire view of money changes. Because real wealth often looks boring, very boring. Sometimes the truly wealthy person is driving a normal car, living in a regular neighborhood, wearing plain clothes, not trying to impress anyone. Meanwhile, someone making far less money might look far richer because they're spending every dollar trying to appear successful. That's the trap. A lot of people confuse being rich with looking rich. Those are not the same thing. Being rich means you have a high income. Wealth means you keep what you earn. Huge difference. A doctor making $500,000 a year can still be broke. An athlete earning millions can still go bankrupt. A celebrity can make massive amounts of money and still lose everything. Look at Mike Tyson. He earned hundreds of millions during his boxing career, and yet he famously went bankrupt. Why? Because making money is one skill. Keeping money is a completely different skill. Same with Nicolas Cage. Massive success, huge movie checks, but overspending created serious financial problems. This happens all the time. And it doesn't only happen to celebrities. Regular people do this every single day. Someone gets their first good paycheck, then upgrades their apartment, then buys a nicer car, then expensive clothes, then luxury vacations, then expensive dinners. And suddenly, their lifestyle grows as fast as their income, sometimes even faster. This is called lifestyle inflation, and it traps millions of people. Because no matter how much they earn, they never actually build wealth. Why? Because they spend everything, sometimes more than everything. Credit cards make this even worse. Buy now, pay later. Look successful immediately, deal with the consequences later. Social media made this problem even more dangerous. Now people don't just spend money for themselves, they spend money for strangers online. Think about that. People go into debt to post photos that make random people jealous. That's insane when you really think about it. The author explains that people often buy expensive things because they want respect. They think, if people see I have nice things, they'll admire me. But that's usually not what happens. When you see someone driving a Ferrari, do you think, wow, that person is amazing? Not really. Most people think, I wish I had a Ferrari. The attention goes to the object, not the owner. That's a brutal truth. You spend money trying to impress people, and they often end up admiring the stuff instead of admiring you. That's a losing game. And the saddest part, many people sacrifice their future for temporary validation. They destroy long-term freedom for short-term status. That's the exact opposite of wealth. Real wealth buys freedom. Freedom to quit a toxic job, freedom to handle emergencies, freedom to sleep peacefully at night, freedom to say no to things you hate. That freedom comes from savings, investments, assets, cash reserves, things nobody can see. Nobody compliments your emergency fund. Nobody praises your retirement account at dinner parties. Nobody says, "Wow, your index fund portfolio looks amazing." Because wealth is invisible. That's why it's harder. You need discipline without external applause. You need patience without social validation. You need to be okay looking ordinary while building something extraordinary behind the scenes. That's difficult in a world obsessed with appearances. And this is where delayed gratification becomes powerful. Imagine two people both earn $100,000 a year. Person A spends almost everything trying to look rich. Person B lives below their means and invests consistently. For a few years, person A looks more successful, better car, better apartment, better vacations. But 10 years later, person B often wins because compound growth starts working. Warren Buffett is one of the greatest examples of this mindset. He still lives relatively modestly compared to his wealth because rich people often stay rich by avoiding unnecessary financial ego battles. And that's what this chapter teaches. Stop trying to look rich. Start trying to become wealthy. Those are very different goals. One gives you temporary attention, the other gives you long-term freedom. And freedom is always worth more than attention. At the end of the day, nobody truly knows your financial situation by looking at your car, clothes, or social media profile. And honestly, that's good news, because it means you can quietly build wealth while everyone else is trying to perform success. You don't need strangers to think you're rich. You need your bank account, investments, and future to be secure. That's real winning. And most people realize that far too late. They spend years buying things they don't need to impress people they don't even like. And by the time they understand the mistake, they've wasted enormous amounts of money. Don't let that be you. Remember this line from The Psychology of Money. Wealth is what you don't see. And sometimes the most financially powerful person in the room looks completely ordinary. Most people are obsessed with getting rich. That's why content about fast money gets insane attention online. How I made my first million at 25. This crypto trade changed my life. Quit your job and become financially free. Side hustles that can make you rich in 6 months. That kind of content blows up because people love the idea of fast success. And honestly, who wouldn't? Everybody wants the exciting story. Nobody gets excited hearing, "Today I'm going to teach you how to be financially responsible for the next 40 years. That sounds boring. But here's what the psychology of money teaches. Getting rich and staying rich require completely different skills, and most people only focus on the first one. Making money often requires optimism. You start a business because you believe things will work out. You invest because you believe the future will be better. You take risks because you think the reward could be huge. That mindset can make you wealthy. But keeping wealth, that requires a very different personality. It requires humility, patience, risk management, and sometimes even paranoia. Morgan Housel says something powerful. To remain wealthy requires the opposite of taking risk. It requires humility and fear that what you've made can be taken away just as fast. That hits hard because history keeps proving it. Look at the dot-com bubble. During the late 1990s, people thought internet stocks could only go up. Companies with no real profits were getting insane valuations. Everyone felt like a genius. Then reality hit. The bubble collapsed. Trillions disappeared. People who thought they were permanently rich got destroyed. Then came the 2008 financial crisis. Same story. People believed housing prices would rise forever. Banks took insane risks, investors became greedy, and then everything crashed. Millions of people suffered. That's what happens when people assume good times will last forever. Success can create dangerous overconfidence. You start thinking, I'm smarter than everyone. I figured out the system. I can't lose. That mindset has ruined countless people. Look at Bernie Madoff. He already had enormous wealth and reputation, but greed pushed him further, and we all know how that ended. Sometimes people lose everything not because they were poor, but because they didn't know when enough was enough. And sometimes it's not greed. Sometimes it's simply bad luck mixed with overexposure. If all your money sits in one company, one investment, one industry, one risky move, your future becomes fragile, and fragile wealth rarely lasts. This is why diversification feels boring but works. Emergency funds feel boring but works. Living below your means feels boring but works. Boring is underrated. People admire dramatic wealth stories, but sustainable wealth stories are usually very boring. That's why Warren Buffett is so fascinating. Yes, he's an incredible investor, but one of his biggest advantages is simply time. He's been investing for decades, and he avoided blowing himself up. That matters more than people realize. Many people focus on his intelligence, but longevity played a massive role. He stayed in the game. That's huge, because compounding only works when you survive long enough. If you keep resetting to zero because of reckless decisions, compounding never gets a chance. Think about professional athletes. A lot of them make millions very quickly. Then, a few years later, they're broke. Why? Bad spending habits, bad advisors, no long-term planning. They mastered earning, they failed at preserving. That happens to regular workers too. Someone gets a raise, then immediately upgrades their life. Bigger house, new car, luxury lifestyle, no savings, no investing. Then one layoff happens and everything falls apart. Their financial life looked strong, but it was fragile. That's the danger. Fragile wealth looks impressive. Durable wealth looks boring. Choose durable. Morgan Housel also talks about room for error. This is one of the smartest financial ideas in the book. Always leave margin for mistakes because life is unpredictable. You could lose your job, markets could crash, health issues could happen, family emergencies happen, unexpected expenses happen. People who survive these situations usually built buffers. People living on the edge often collapse faster. And this applies beyond money too. Businesses fail because they overexpand. Athletes fail because they overtrain. Relationships fail because people push too far. Margin matters everywhere, and ego often destroys margin. People hate feeling like they're missing out. Your friend buys a luxury car, now you want one. Your coworker buys a bigger house, now you feel behind. Social media makes this worse. You compare your behind-the-scenes life to someone else's highlight reel. That's financially dangerous. Sometimes the smartest move is simply saying, I already have enough. That sentence sounds simple, but can save your entire future because chasing more forever has no finish line. There will always be someone richer, someone younger, someone more successful. That game never ends, and people destroy themselves trying to win it. Real financial success is not about looking unstoppable. It's about being hard to kill financially. That means low debt, high savings, diversified investments, controlled lifestyle inflation, long-term thinking. That's how people quietly stay rich. And honestly, that's much harder than getting rich in the first place, because staying rich requires discipline when nobody's forcing you to be disciplined. It requires patience when everyone else looks flashy, and it requires understanding one brutal truth. Making money can happen fast. Keeping money is a lifelong skill. People love simple success stories.
We love hearing things like, "He worked harder than everyone else. She was smarter than the competition. They just wanted it more." That story feels good because it makes life seem predictable. Work hard, become successful. Make smart choices, become wealthy. Clean, simple, motivating. But real life? Way messier than that. And this is one of the most uncomfortable lessons in the psychology of money. Luck and risk play a much bigger role in success than most people want to admit, and people hate hearing that, because if luck matters, then maybe success isn't fully under your control, and that makes people uncomfortable. But pretending luck doesn't exist makes people arrogant when they win and cruel when others lose. That's dangerous. Let's use one of the most famous examples from the book, Bill Gates. Obviously, he's brilliant, no question, but he also had access to something incredibly rare at the time, a computer terminal at school. That sounds normal today, but back in the late 1960s, that was extremely unusual. Very few schools had that kind of access, and his school happened to be one of them. That early exposure changed everything. Now, imagine if you'd gone to another school, a school without computers. Would he still become Microsoft's founder? Maybe, maybe not. That's the point. Talent mattered, hard work mattered, but timing and luck mattered too. And here's something even darker. One of Gates's close friends, Kent Evans, was also extremely talented and equally passionate about computers. Many people believed he could have become incredibly successful too, but he died in a mountain climbing accident as a teenager. That's risk. Same talent, very different outcome. Life can change because of one random event. That's uncomfortable, but real. And it happens everywhere. Think about entrepreneurs. Some launch businesses during booming economies. Others launch during recessions. Same work ethic, different timing, different outcomes. Think about real estate. Someone buys a house before prices explode. Another buys right before a crash. Same decision type, different timing, different results. Even careers work like this. Someone graduates during a strong job market. Someone else graduates during a recession. One gets opportunities. The other struggles for years. Timing matters, risk matters, luck matters. But society often ignores this because we love neat narratives. When someone succeeds, we say they deserved it. When someone fails, we say they didn't work hard enough. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes it's completely wrong. Look at the COVID-19 pandemic. How many businesses failed during that period? Restaurants, gyms, travel companies, small local shops. Did all those owners suddenly become lazy? Of course not. Many were simply hit by brutal circumstances they couldn't control. Meanwhile, some businesses exploded during the same period. Zoom video communications grew massively. Amazon benefited from online shopping growth. Different industries, different outcomes, massive role of circumstance. This lesson is important because it should make you more humble. If you succeed financially, great, be proud, but don't assume every struggling person is irresponsible, and don't assume your success is 100% self-made. That mindset makes people unbearable. And on the flip side, if you fail at something, don't automatically label yourself a loser. Sometimes you made smart choices and still got hit by bad timing. That happens. And that's why managing risk matters so much. Because life is unpredictable. You can't control luck, but you can reduce unnecessary risk.
You can save money, you can diversify, you can avoid reckless debt, you can build emergency funds, you can create backup plans, you can avoid betting everything on one outcome. That's how adults play the financial game, not by pretending bad things won't happen, but by preparing for uncertainty. That's one of the smartest financial mindsets you can develop, because the world is full of people who confuse good luck with personal genius. Then one bad year destroys them. Stock market booms make everyone feel smart. Bull markets create fake experts. Then reality shows up, and suddenly those geniuses disappear. We saw this during crypto bubbles too. During huge runs, everyone feels like an investing mastermind. Then crashes happen, and people realize they were riding momentum, not brilliance. Morgan Housel's point is powerful. Focus less on copying extreme success stories, because those stories often include invisible luck. Instead, focus on building a financial life that survives bad luck. That's smarter. You don't need to become the richest person in the room. You need to become financially resilient. That means surviving bad years, bad markets, bad timing, unexpected disasters. Because if you stay in the game long enough, you give luck more chances to help you, and you protect yourself when risk shows up. That's real financial maturity. Life is not fair. Money isn't fair. Timing isn't fair, but understanding that reality can actually make you wiser, less arrogant when things go well, less hopeless when things go badly, and much smarter with your decisions moving forward. Have you ever argued with someone about money and thought, how can this person be so irrational? Maybe they refuse to invest. Maybe they save way too aggressively. Maybe they gamble on risky stocks. Maybe they spend money like there's no tomorrow. And from your perspective, their behavior makes zero sense. But here's one of the smartest lessons from the psychology of money. Nobody is crazy about money. They're making decisions based on experiences you probably never had. That line changes how you judge people. Because money decisions aren't made in a vacuum. They're shaped by childhood, family, culture, economic conditions, trauma, timing, and personal experiences. Let's say someone grew up watching their parents lose everything during the 2008 financial crisis. They watched foreclosures, debt collectors, parents fighting over bills, stress everywhere. That person may grow up terrified of investing, even if investing logically makes sense. To them, safety feels more important than growth. And honestly, that reaction makes sense. Now imagine someone who became an adult during a massive bull market. They watched stocks go up for years, crypto exploded, real estate skyrocketed, everything looked easy. That person might think, why would I keep cash? Just invest everything. Again, that behavior also makes sense from their experience. Different life experiences create different financial beliefs. Neither person feels irrational from their own perspective. That's what most people miss. We judge people based on our own financial experiences, but our experiences are limited. For example, someone who grew up poor may obsess over saving every penny even after becoming successful. They might reuse old clothes, avoid vacations, feel guilty spending money. Other people may call them cheap, but maybe they remember what financial instability felt like. That fear doesn't disappear overnight. On the other hand, someone who grew up wealthy may treat money very casually. They may assume safety nets always exist. Parents can help. Connections can help. Opportunities will always show up. That mindset can create totally different spending behavior. Again, different experiences, different psychology, same money. This also explains why generations think differently. People who lived through the Great Depression often became extremely cautious with money. Many saved everything, avoided waste, kept emergency cash. That experience shaped them for life. Meanwhile, younger generations raised during years of easy credit often developed very different habits. Buy now, pay later, use debt casually. Again, environment matters. And social media has made this even weirder. Now people constantly compare themselves to lifestyles they were never meant to compare themselves to. You open your phone and see luxury vacations, designer clothes, new cars, perfect apartments, business success, crypto wins, and suddenly your normal life feels small, even if you're doing fine. That pressure pushes people into terrible financial decisions. People spend money trying to keep up with people they've never met. That's insane. And often those people online are broke too. They're financing fake lifestyles, leasing things, borrowing money, creating illusions, and viewers compare themselves to fake success. That cycle destroys financial peace. Morgan Housel makes another powerful point. Your personal experiences make up maybe 0.000000001% of what happened in the world. Yet many people treat their own experiences as universal truth. That's dangerous. Someone who made money in real estate thinks real estate is everything. Someone who got rich from stocks thinks stocks are everything. Someone who got burned by crypto thinks crypto is always evil. People generalize from tiny sample sizes. That leads to bad advice. This is why financial advice online can be so contradictory. One person says, take huge risks when you're young. Another says, play it safe. One says, buy property immediately. Another says, rent forever. Who's right? Sometimes both, sometimes neither. Their advice often reflects their personal story, not universal truth. That's why blindly copying someone else's financial strategy is dangerous. Their risk tolerance may be different, their responsibilities may be different, their income may be different, their upbringing may be different, their country may be different, their opportunities may be different. Your money decisions should fit your life, not someone else's highlight reel. And this lesson also helps relationships. A lot of couples fight about money. One person wants to save, one wants to spend, one wants aggressive investing, one wants security. These fights aren't often about math, they're about emotional history. Understanding that can save a lot of conflict. At the end of the day, people aren't bad with money because they're stupid. Many are reacting to their own life experiences. And once you understand that, you become less judgmental and much smarter about your own financial blind spots. Because your money beliefs might not be objective either. They're just your story. And sometimes your story needs updating. When most people imagine being rich, they picture flashy stuff. Luxury cars, big houses, private jets, designer brands, VIP vacations. That's the version of wealth social media constantly sells, and for a lot of people, that becomes the goal. Once I make enough money, I'll finally buy all the things I want. Sounds exciting, but the psychology of money makes a much deeper argument. The highest form of wealth is freedom. And honestly, that idea hits harder the older you get, because after a certain point, more stuff stops improving your life, but more control over your time, that changes everything. Think about it. What do most people hate about work? It's not always the actual work. Sometimes it's having no control over your schedule, being forced to wake up early, asking permission to take vacation, dealing with toxic bosses, attending pointless meetings, living with constant financial pressure. That's what drains people. A lot of people don't actually want a Lamborghini. They want the freedom they think the Lamborghini represents. Those are very different things. And many people accidentally entrap themselves. They earn more money, then immediately upgrade their lifestyle. Bigger apartment, luxury car payments, expensive vacations, designer clothes, private schools, more subscriptions, more monthly obligations, and suddenly they need that high income just to survive. They look rich, but they've built a financial prison. They can't quit their job. They can't take risks. They can't slow down. They can't say no. That's not freedom. That's expensive slavery. And it happens everywhere. A lawyer making huge money but working 80-hour weeks, a business owner who can't step away for one day, an influencer constantly chasing relevance, a corporate employee trapped by lifestyle inflation. Outsiders see success. The person living it may feel exhausted. That's why Morgan Housel argues that having control over your time is one of life's greatest dividends. And he's right. Imagine waking up without panic, being able to spend time with your family, taking a break when your mental health needs it, traveling without begging for approval, choosing work you actually enjoy, walking away from toxic environments. That's real wealth. And the crazy part? That kind of freedom often requires spending less, not earning endlessly more. That's where people get confused. They think, I need millions before I can relax. Sometimes what they really need is lower expenses and better financial discipline. A person earning $80,000 while living below their means may have more real freedom than someone making $400,000 while drowning in obligations. Income alone doesn't create freedom. Margin creates freedom. Low debt creates freedom. Savings create freedom. Financial flexibility creates freedom. That's why emergency funds matter so much. People treat emergency savings as boring, but having 6 months of expenses saved can completely change how you live. You negotiate differently. You leave bad jobs faster. You panic less. You sleep better. That cash buys emotional peace, and peace is underrated. Look at Warren Buffett again. Yes, he's wealthy, but one reason people admire him is because he built a life where money gives him massive autonomy. He chooses what he wants to do. That's the dream. And freedom isn't always dramatic. Sometimes freedom means taking care of your parents, being present for your kids, working part-time, starting a passion project, moving cities, taking a year off, leaving a toxic relationship. All of that becomes easier when money gives you breathing room. Without financial freedom, many people stay stuck in situations they hate, jobs they hate, cities they hate, relationships they hate, because they can't afford alternatives. That's terrifying. And social media rarely talks about this because freedom looks boring online. Nobody flexes, look at my fully funded emergency account, look at my low monthly expenses, look at my stress-free life. Those things don't get likes. Luxury gets attention. Peace gets ignored. But peace wins long term. And here's the truth many people learn too late. The best thing money can buy is the ability to control your own life. That's it. Not applause, not status, not strangers being impressed. Control. And once you understand that, you stop making financial decisions based on ego. You stop chasing lifestyles that trap you. You stop trying to impress people who don't care. And you start asking a much smarter question. Will this purchase increase my freedom or reduce it?
That question alone can save you years of regret, because real wealth isn't loud. Sometimes real wealth looks like someone quietly living life on their own terms, and that's far more valuable than looking rich online.
This might be the most uncomfortable lesson in the psychology of money, because it forces people to confront something they rarely admit. Sometimes the biggest financial risk isn't being poor, it's never feeling satisfied. And that mindset destroys people. Think about it. How much money is enough? For many people, the answer is always just a little more. More income, more investments, bigger house, better car, higher status, more recognition. And the problem? That finish line keeps moving. You hit one goal, then immediately create another. That cycle can go on forever, and society constantly fuels it. Social media shows someone richer, your coworker gets promoted, your friend buys a bigger house, a celebrity posts their private jet, and suddenly what once felt like success feels average. Comparison quietly destroys contentment. And if you can't define what enough means for your own life, you can spend decades chasing something that never arrives. Morgan Housel tells a powerful story about Rajat Gupta. He was already incredibly successful, former head of McKinsey & Company, extremely wealthy, highly respected. He had what most people dream about. And yet, he became involved in insider trading. Why? Because even enormous success wasn't enough. He wanted more, and that decision destroyed his reputation. Then there's Bernie Madoff. He already had wealth, status, influence, but greed kept expanding, and eventually everything collapsed. These stories are extreme, but the mindset exists everywhere. Regular people do smaller versions of this every day, taking on debt for things they can't afford, risking retirement savings on hype investments, making reckless business decisions, burning themselves out, chasing lifestyles they don't even enjoy, all because they never stop to ask, what am I actually trying to achieve? That question matters, because if your goal is simply more, you'll never win. There will always be someone richer, someone younger, someone with more followers, someone with a bigger house. That competition never ends, and trying to win it is exhausting. Morgan Housel talks about one of the most dangerous financial habits, risking what you need for what you don't need. That's incredibly common. People risk stable lives chasing unnecessary upgrades. They gamble family security for status. They sacrifice peace for ego. That trade is often terrible. Imagine having a stable income, healthy relationships, good mental health, financial security, time freedom, and then risking all of that for a slightly bigger house or more impressive lifestyle. That's irrational, but people do it constantly. Because enough is a moving target when you compare yourself to others. This is why contentment becomes a financial skill. And people rarely talk about contentment as a skill, but it is. Being able to say, this is enough for me, that's powerful. That protects you from stupid decisions. That protects you from lifestyle inflation. That protects you from endless comparison. And no, this doesn't mean you shouldn't be ambitious. Ambition is great. Building wealth is great. Improving your life is great. But ambition without boundaries becomes greed, and greed is expensive. Very expensive. This lesson also applies to investing. People often have solid portfolios, but they chase insane returns because normal growth feels boring. Then they fall for scams, over-leveraged trades, speculative bubbles, pump and dump nonsense, and suddenly years of progress disappear. Why? Because slow success felt too slow. That impatience ruins people. Meanwhile, many wealthy people quietly build fortunes through boring consistency, saving regularly, investing long-term, avoiding unnecessary risk, living below their means, not trying to win every financial game. That sounds less exciting, but it works, and it usually leads to something far more valuable than extreme wealth: peace. And peace is incredibly underrated. At the end of your life, nobody gives you extra points because you had a slightly bigger yacht than someone else. Nobody cares. What matters is whether money improved your life or consumed it. Did it buy freedom? Did it reduce stress? Did it help your family? Did it give you meaningful choices? Or did you spend your entire life chasing numbers on a screen? That's the real question. And maybe the smartest financial sentence you can ever say is, "I have enough." Because once you truly understand that, money stops controlling you and you finally start controlling your life.